on.
Okay, meeting called to order. Please rise for pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call members, Julie?
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter,
Aye.
Councilmember Rochester, Councilmember Bory,
Here.
and Supervisor Champlain.
Here. Need a motion for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting?
I make a motion that we approve the February 8th minutes with the understanding that a quick spelling mistake on page number 6 to pass the Bridge New York resolution.
Which paragraph are you referring to?
It's on page 6. It is paragraph number, see from the top, 1, 2, 3, under new business, it would be the 4th paragraph. It says Supervisor Tremblay stated we need to pass the bridge. Yep.
Might be best under there.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm sure there are.
Okay, all in favor of, do I have a second?
I'll second the motion with the amended change.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it's approved. Now we'll start with presentations, which looks like we just have Horton and Judas here, so is that get started?
Sure, absolutely. Pass something out here just to have a visual aid in front of you as we discuss this. This is an exhibit or an appendix from the
Thank you.
Sewer District 6 report that was completed in 2014, actually by Anthony and myself. And we were with a different firm at that time.
Thank you very much.
So for those that I haven't met before, I'm Matt Cooper with Barton and LaJudas. This is Anthony Young. We've worked with the town for probably myself nearly 20 years on water and sewer infrastructure. What we're talking about specifically tonight is kind of the last piece of the infrastructure that of the greater plan that we had started again nearly 20 years ago. With an effort to extend water and sewer service to certain parts of the town to better facilitate growth, business growth, and also work with the Village of Champlain to improve components of their system as a joint effort to do so, their storage and their water treatment. So this piece that we're talking about now is a sewer service primarily between the villages of Champlain and Rouse's Point along Route 11, with a couple offshoots on South Street and Hayford Road. There wasn't a part of this previously included in this report that included West Service Road. However, we carved that piece off when we did receive a grant for the project that would at least allow us to do that portion of the project, of the overall project. So this project that you see here before you is identifies a proposed sewer district outlined in 2 phases, with a blue boundary representing a first phase and an orange boundary as a second phase. Now keep in mind, like I said, we carved off the West Service Road portion of that to do as a separate project with a $400,000 shared services grant that the town had received. Which leaves the rest on this as still unserved by sewer. That service area pretty much mirrors the boundaries of the water district that was completed several years ago. So the goal was to provide both municipal water and sewer to that area, identified by that boundary. The project, the overall project at that time was approximately 6.9 million. However, once we carved the West Service Road off, we subtracted about 1.5 million off that total project cost with our listings with the funding agency. So this project has been on what we refer to as the intended use plan with EFC. We use a lot of acronyms, so stop me at any time if I use one you're not familiar with.
Okay.
So New York State EFC is the Environmental Facilities Corporation. They handle what really is passed down money from EPA to fund water and sewer projects. That's the arm of New York State that handles that funding in New York State. To facilitate funding projects, they have what I refer to as the intended use plan, the IUP, that they publish it annually, and what it lists is all the projects within New York State that have submitted applications, and upon their review and scoring the project, ranks all those projects. And they use that ranking as the mechanism to determine who gets the funding. So they start from the top of that list with the highest score, which represents the projects that have the most need from a sanitary standpoint, a state sanitary code standpoint. So they start at that highest and work their way down until essentially they run out of money that year. Offer those projects funding. Next year, those projects come off the list, and they add more to the list with new applicants coming in, and then, again, work their way down from the top. This project sat at a fairly low score for quite a few years on the list. However, the state changed the classification of the Chazy River that runs through a portion of the district. That change in classification jumped your score nearly 50 points, I believe, which most projects are between 0 and 100. So a 50-point jump is very significant. It puts your project, near the top of the list. Certainly in a position to secure 0% interest loans and grants. Now, the 0% interest loan qualification is actually a significant funding component. I know we focus a lot on grants on projects. However, when you're talking multi-million-dollar projects, the difference between having a 0% loan for 30 years versus a 3% loan on millions of dollars is huge. And it has a huge impact on the user cost. I mean, going from 3% interest to 0, essentially in itself is a pretty significant grant. I mean, equates to a significant grant if you're to do the impact result on user rates in the end. And really that's what, our evaluation really boils down to when we're looking at a district like this. First of all, we've got to show that technically it's needed. There are sanitary reasons why you need a sewer district in this area. You have failing septic systems, illegal septic discharges to streams, rivers, and such. And the engineering report we did for you 8 years ago documents that. And the scoring the project received now reflects that. It's a technically sound, technically needed project. But in the end, if it's not affordable to the users, it just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, we really have to focus our efforts on getting a project implemented after the report is done, is how do we get it funded? Really, that's the skill we learn on the job that they don't teach in college. It's certainly not part of the engineering curriculum. It's learning and understanding the funding rules, the funding programs. They're ever changing. And the nice thing about engineering is, the laws of physics we learned 25 years ago in college still apply today. The funding rules change every year. So I have a lot more work to do to stay on top of the funding programs than I do the engineering itself. Programs start, they stop, the rules change, we get a new president, they decide we need a stimulus, they overfund programs, you want to be in line when that happens, but you always have to have your hat in the ring in order to be eligible for those programs. We've kept your hat in the ring on this project for the last 8 years. However, last year, we received an email from EFC as they went down their list of projects on their intended use plan and felt that a 2014 report for a project that still hasn't started is a bit outdated. As you know, the cost of everything in our world has gone up. And at a minimum, they said, you need to take a look at your project cost. And I had talked to Tom about that, and I said, you know, at this point, all we need to do is submit a simple response to them that we want the project left on the list. However, EFC said, until you have an updated report, we're gonna move you from what they call their annual list, which is the list of projects that are actually being considered that year for funding, to what they call their multi-year list. Projects that are on the back burner. They don't take you off, and you don't lose your score yet, but they are not going to look at you for funding that current year. So that's what brought this conversation about, is does the town want to update the engineering report so that the project gets put back on the annual list and is actively considered for funding? With the current funding environment, it's a good time to have a place in line for funding. With the infrastructure funding that's already been passed, you know, they're looking at increasing the allocations for EFC is 2 to 3 times each year over the next 5 years. In fact, in 2021, one of the funding programs that this project would be eligible for is the WQIP, Water Quality Improvement Projects program. When the applications were announced last summer, they said they were gonna have, I believe, 49 million available for projects. When they announced the awarded projects, we started doing some simple math and we're like, that doesn't add up to 49 million. They actually awarded $172 million worth of grants because the state had the money and put it into the program. Those funding levels I've never seen before. They were funding some projects, sewer district projects, up to $9 million grants. I had never seen that in 20 plus years of doing municipal water and sewer. It's a very good time, you know, to have a project in the queue. However, the only thing that's working against you is the increasing construction costs at this point. So all the more reason to update your engineering report, get updated construction costs in there, and look at, is this project still affordable to the users? When I say affordable to the users, there's a few components in that. What I've been talking about the most is the debt. So when we build the infrastructure, only a portion of it's gonna be grant covered. There will be debt associated with this.
Right.
That debt will translate into an annual debt payment divided amongst the users, and that's one component of what will be their ongoing cost. The other component is operation and maintenance. So for a sewer district that doesn't own or operate its own sewer treatment plant, you have to send the sewage somewhere. You would send it to one of the 2 nearby villages. It just wouldn't be practical in this case to build your own sewer treatment plant. Just not economically feasible. So you would have discussions with both the village of Champlain and the village of Rouse's Point and discuss with them the option of sending sewage to one or the other, or to both, depending on the layout of the district. Maybe someone goes one way, someone would go the other. So that would be another piece of the evaluation is discussing with the villages if they're willing to receive sewage, and if so, at what cost. Because then we have to add that cost into the formula and see what is it gonna cost these users in the end. Each year, the New York State Comptroller publishes the average town water district and sewer district cost across the state. If your sewer district comes in, or water district comes in at or under that number, based on us evaluating these, you get a rubber stamp approval for your district to move forward. If your cost is above that, then the comptroller does a much more thorough review. When we first formed the water district number 6, 7 years ago, we were above the state comptroller's number for water districts in the state. That project sat in review of the comptroller for over a year and still didn't get approved. What happened is another calendar year went by and the comptroller published a new number, which was higher than what we were at. So they had us retract our application and then reform the district during that current year with a new higher threshold that we were able to stay under. Same number, just new threshold. And then the project moved forward. So what we typically look at when we're talking about, is this project affordable? We kind of look at that number. You know, what is the state comptroller's number this year? Not to say that we can't go over it, or that we definitely wouldn't shoot to stay as far under it as possible, but that's kind of the bar of the starting point for discussion. And then, you know, you get a sense from the users, is that an amount you're willing to pay? So all of these are things that go into the evaluation.
So would that be looked at as a separate new district? Like in regards to the water, we ended up merging
Right,
districts to form a new one.
right. All your sewer districts are still separate, as far as I know.
They are, we're actually
Yep.
investigating merging. some
Merging
of
them, yep. Yep. Yeah, there were some unique factors that allowed us to merge all the water districts. Whether or not, you know, the sewer district part would work out, I guess I was never part of a conversation of trying to figure out if that would make it work, but you have started looking at that?
Yeah, just started.
Just started.
Yep.
So yeah, this district would have to be, at least initially looked at as a standalone district. And then possibly merging with the other districts. Unless you were able to merge all of these sooner, then you could look at this as a district extension. The only challenge with that is when, you know, this infrastructure has nothing to do and to no benefit of all your existing users, and you're bringing on all this new debt, so your existing users are like, so why are we helping these new guys pay off their sewer lines when...
As compared to the water where we're improving the system.
Right, where the water actually helped everybody because it created a new loop around the entire service area.
And better quality water and better pressure.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yep.
And then in looking at the map, this proposed sewer district, phase one, we still have the West Service Road in there, so that would come out.
That would come out. That would be updated as part of the report.
Down here, at the, you know, Ridge Road area and so on, that's part of it. There's improvements to be made there, is that why?
I don't see where we had any part of Ridge Road in there. We go as far to Ridge Road on Route 11.
I guess that's what I meant, Ridge
Oh, yeah.
Road, Route 9. That would be to add sewer main to that area?
Correct.
Okay. So it would run from there,
To be able to pick up the pharmacy, and
it would catch that South Street, which is definitely a problem.
that's where really this conversation started 20 years ago with South Street.
Yeah.
And South Street has the most documented sanitary need. I mean, DEC at that point or the Department of Health had already written a report about the failures on South Street.
So by tying that in with this, does it give it more points?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that gives us an idea of what it would entail going forward. Correct?
I'll just mention too, so back in 2014 when we did this, you know, Matt mentioned that point score. I think it was 34, 39. We couldn't get above it. We tried with the FC, and that was a key factor to get that 0% interest loan, and we couldn't do it. Since you've had it, no other grants have been applied for, and more grants have came out. The WQIP that Matt mentioned, there's a WIA grant, and those levels keep increasing every year. So there's more funding available than what there was in 2014 too. And now you qualify for that 0% interest loan. So it's in better shape than what it was, 7 years ago.
Can I ask a question?
Sure can.
What is the, so paint me a picture. What's a typical percentage of debt that is associated with a project of this size, standard? Like what is covered versus what then has to be paid back?
Yep, it's unique with every project. It depends on how successful you are with the grants and which programs. The WQIP grant program is a 62% grant. The WIA grants, the Water Infrastructure Improvements Act grants, are only 25% grants, but you can actually combine those.
So, okay.
So you would get, if you were successful with a 62% grant, that would be applied first. And then whatever's left in loan, they would look at for the 25% grant. They would then knock it down another 25%. So it varies. Some projects move forward with just the 25% grant. If you're able to compile a couple of them, you could actually move forward with 70+% grant, and have as little as 30 to 25% loan. But what we would do with our evaluation is look at what funding scenario, combination of grants and loans, would get you down to the affordable level. And what happens is, some of those grants require you to form the sewer district just to apply for the grant. So when you do that, we have to try to come up with a realistic funding plan of grants and loans and say, this is what's required to make this project move forward. And it's written into the district formation documents. And if you can't satisfy that grant loan scenario that we build into the district formation, then the project doesn't move forward. The district just stays on paper and that's it. You've got to once you identify we need 70% grants in order to get the user rate down to $700 a year, you've got to satisfy that and keep applying for grants, or else the project just doesn't move forward. And that's the protection the users have. When you form a district before you have grants, a lot of people are like, I don't know if this is a good idea. We have no way to pay for this. Why should I vote yes? Well, you're voting on a conditional district, essentially. If that's the protection they have. If we write in the district documents that the user rate's gonna be $700 a year, we can't start anything on the project until we get enough grants to meet the $700 per year user rate.
So it's contingent upon that?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That $700 rate, is that similar to a loan repayment, like the EDUs, or is it?
That would have to be, whatever we come up with is the typical first year user cost, is what that 700 would be labeled, or whatever number we come up with, 700, 800, whatever. That is all in, all cost. It's the debt, it's the O&M, or any other costs associated with operating that district. Once you set that number, you have to satisfy that, all costs in. Debt, user rate, paying the villages to take your sewage.
So total cost of using.
Correct.
Can you give us an example of other municipalities that have a similar project where they in fact have this agreement with another municipality to actually take the sewer? Typically, what are you looking at in terms of cost to be able to pay for that other municipality to kind of take that sewage?
Well, there are established existing costs. I mean, the town already has 5 sewer districts.
Correct.
And all of that goes to the village of Champlain.
Right.
You have intermunicipal agreements and user rates for those already. We would be looking at, trying to negotiate those to get the most favorable cost possible. But, we have those all over the North Country. And they vary depending on what that village's cost is to run their plant and what their mentality is on how they want to treat their neighboring community. Some look at providing basically a wholesale rate rather than a retail rate.
So when this study was done years ago, was it already determined that the village of Champlain could actually take on this amount of sewage?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And they still have more than enough capacity at this point,
As does the village of Rouse's Point.
as does the village of Rouse's Point. Both of them have excess capacity, well in excess of what this district would need.
Did you formulate a price to renew this
Well,
and get?
I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. And I guess it depends on what we're asked to do. So if we are only looking at the same service area, so we're not doing, because when we did this evaluation, we looked well beyond this boundary you see here. We did interest surveys, we had a lot more public interaction on figuring out who wants it, who doesn't want it, and then we had to calculate going out each road, you know, how much is it gonna cost to pick up that next house, and that next house? Well, the first one you wanna pick up is 200 feet down the road. The next one is separated by 500 feet. The next one's 1,000 feet. It just gets more and more expensive to add each home, and more cost prohibitive. So we did that exercise on all of these roads. I wouldn't anticipate us doing that again, unless you have different feelings about that. If we're just looking at the service area as identified by this boundary and not looking beyond it, and simply reevaluating the EDU count based on new homes built, new businesses established, some homes tore down, whatever, redo your EDU count, redo the project cost, and then rerun your funding scenarios with, you know, the funding that exists today. That's a much simpler effort. I mean, normally, a service area of this size to do the evaluation from scratch is a $20,000 to $30,000 study. If we're limiting our efforts to this boundary, and the fact that Anthony and I have both done this before for this area, it's something probably in the realm of $7,500.
Just to get it back in the queue.
Just to get a new PER, get it back in the queue. Now, in addition to that, and this is where there's a big variable in the effort you would need is other project development effort. Would you want us involved with negotiation and meetings with the villages? Funding applications, are you gonna apply for 1 grant, 2 grants, 3 grants? You know, what level of effort is needed for that? For that, my suggestion would be to, because I don't know and you probably don't know exactly how much effort is gonna be involved with that, just have an hourly line item in our fee, have an established cap, but have us just work hourly on demand as requested by you. If you tell us, listen, we want you to do the WQIP grant application, okay, we'll do that one. We want you to come up to Rouse's Point for a board meeting, or Zoom into a meeting with the Village of Champlain. You know, we can do those on demand as needed on an hourly basis. And then your only exposure is whatever you asked us to do. But it'd be difficult for me to try to put a price on that at this time. You could establish a $5,000 cap on it now. If we get to the 5,000, you could decide that's it, no more, or, you know, we're still making progress on this, we need to move forward, we'll throw another 5,000 on there. But that's entirely up to you. But that's how I would suggest to handle that part of the effort. The PER, you know, doing a new report for this service area
Just step one.
is a clean, defined task. And that's something I can put a figure to.
So once this study is completed for that amount of, let's say, $7,500, how long does it stay in the queue if you're looking at that multi-year, so maybe you're not going to address it immediately? How long does it stay in the queue before you have to actually prepare a new study to actually satisfy EFC's requirements?
They don't have an expiration date on reports. I think they were, this past year, taking an extra effort than they normally do to try to thin out the list, thin out those that are serious versus those that have kind of given up interest on whatever project they had listed. And it had been 7 years, you know, that's the first time I've seen them do it. So I'm assuming it would be something around the same age. But keep in mind, there is no defined expiration date in the rules. I think they were just kind of cleaning house a little bit.
I think the direction I'm coming from is in terms of multi-year is waiting for some of this so-called construction cost to come down before we actually enter into something of such a large, you know, price tag item. So,
I think if we started with this report now, we're still years out before we're talking about construction.
how long do you think we're talking, Anthony? I mean, just give me an idea. 3 years?
Would be best case, that's 2 years for grant applications,
Okay.
get a year for design, then we start construction, that's probably best case.
I mean, that's the one thing to keep with these in mind with these municipal infrastructure projects. When you make a decision to start doing a study report today, it doesn't mean we're going to construction next month.
Right.
The life cycle of these projects is, you know, some of you remember from the water, is years and years and years. You know, if you wanted to provide municipal sewer to this area, if you started today, they would be able to flush their toilets down this line probably in 4 to 5 years. Best case scenario.
So when I personally started working on the water project, it was 2011. Nothing was broke, we didn't break ground for anything until 2015, and that was just the first part of it.
Okay.
Jason? If you're gonna say something.
And the deadline to get projects updated or new projects on the intended use plan this year is June. It's actually the earliest deadline they've ever had annually. It used to be September, they moved it up to August, then July, and then this year they announced it's June. Which isn't really that far away.
Right.
We're just about at the point, you know, of telling our clients that make new requests, sorry, we can't get there, not by June. But since this is one we've done before, and it's a pretty clean, defined service area and task, and this would be probably one of the last ones I would promise a client they'd have done by June.
Well, to answer his question in regards to the layout of the district, I don't see any reason to add to it. Do you? I mean, the main thing is taking care of that south
Right,
Street
the South Street
problem.
area, yeah.
It's got the Route 11 corridor and it's going out from Hayford Road to the golf course. Within this yellow boundary, Matt, you had looked into going out to additional houses, or is it just along the main green line?
Yeah, it's just the parcels that
It runs through?
border the highway
Okay,
on Route 11.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Because the whole boundary goes, you know, way out Prospect Street, all up to Rouse's Point. Is that just in case it was to be extended?
Well, those parcels border Hayford Road.
Mm-hmm.
So any parcel that borders a road that has a sewer main on it would be included in the district.
Okay.
Yeah, town law states that any property that is benefited must be in the district, and all properties that are in the district must be benefited.
Got it. So that explains why that whole golf course is part of that district, because they are boundary to that line on the Hayford Road. Just wanted to clarify that, see how it's working. It's based on the whole size of that parcel.
Yep.
Okay. So it sounds like, I see it as step one, we have a need to get this report revised. And then we could come back and make a decision on how we're gonna move forward looking at grants.
Absolutely.
That's step two, right?
Yep. Yeah, the first grant availability after the report is done, well, USDA Rural Development accept that applications year round. But the next one with a deadline would be the WQIP program, which is done under the CFA umbrella.
That's typically due in July, at the end of July.
That has to be-
Released in May and due in July is their typical schedule.
So if we decide to move forward applying for that, we'd have to start soon then,
You'd have to decide by May probably,
by May, okay.
because that's usually when CFAs are announced, the availability of CFAs.
And based on the amount of grants that you find that we qualify for, then we would consider forming the district next.
Well, the WQIP does not require you to form the district. However, the next grant that would come up is typically made available in the fall, and that's the WIA grant, the Water Infrastructure Improvements Act, WIIA. That is usually due September. Last year it was late. They're kind of late getting their act together with COVID, but they're usually due in September. That actually requires you to form the district in order to apply.
Okay.
So, and with the length of the lead time it takes to form the district, doing the seeker, then the district formation process, that's about a 3-month process. You know, you would have to probably decide that by May or June as well.
So as a town, we'd be looking at least, given the actual WQIP and WIIA, we'd be looking at least probably 15% that would be a burden that would be shared by the people inside the town.
I'm not sure if I understand.
So in other words, the grant amounts that you said, 62% for the WQIP, and about another 25% for the WE grants, pretty, so if we were to secure those, we're gonna pass the remaining amount on to the actual people within inside of the town.
Correct.
So we're talking at around 15%, somewhere in that.
Yeah, except the other thing you have to consider, that 25% is of the remaining 38% that the 62% grant may
Okay,
cover.
that's-
That's the little trick they do with the calculation there.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And one other thing, the WQIP is 62.5%. They won't pay for engineering and legal costs. They pay for construction and inspection. So it's not that
Okay.
full number either, so.
So when we run the funding scenarios for you,
Yeah.
we'll take all those program requirements and limitations into account when we actually hand you the report, and it shows this is what we project your user costs will be based on these funding programs and all the rules and stipulations in those funding programs. Like, this one won't cover engineering, and this one only covers 25% after the other grants are subtracted out. It'll reflect all of that.
And they're all different, and the other one that I mentioned was USDA Rural Development. They don't say a max grant of 25% anyway, or anything like that. They look at your user cost. They'll give you as much grant to get you down to what they think somebody at your MHI should be paying for sewer.
When they come up with that number, do they take into account an already existing burden that they have paying back for another infrastructure project? Is all that weighted in?
They keep water and sewer separate.
Yeah,
Okay.
But if it was other sewer they were paying on, then yes, they would take that into account, but water and sewer is separate.
Okay.
yeah, it's based on, like I said, the median household income, MHI. They look at that, and then they have a factor that they play with, like 1.5 to 1.8% of the median household income is what they feel that those people can afford. So if your median household income in the town per the census is, let's say, $50,000, and they apply their 1.5%. So according to that formula, if that's what they apply, that would result in a user rate of $750 a year. So they would supply as much grant to bring your rate down to that much. They wouldn't add another single dollar of grant if your rate gets down to $749. So that's what their objective is they wanna see your user rate down to what they consider an affordable level. So they will apply a grant to get you to that point. So we look at combining all these grants with all their different rules and mixing and matching until you come up with the best funding package for the project.
And it never works out to be 99%.
It's impossible.
Just checking.
And the other,
That's dreaming in color, Jason.
the other key factor that Matt mentioned too is the rate to either village, whatever we want to go to. And, you know, we'll need that rate to finish the report to come up with that user cost.
Is the potential to use both village facilities?
Possible.
That's a possibility.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the Route 11 corridor, we could send half one way and half the other.
Okay.
That's an option.
That's what we.
Unless one of them wants to charge you $4 a K-gal, and the other wants to charge you $10 a K-gal, we're sending it all to the $4 one.
And also you gotta figure in the O and M, I mean, in
Right.
terms of distance, so.
Yep. And if you have pump stations, there's electrical costs with operating the pumps and so on and so forth.
Right, so if they were comparable in cost, it's
Mhm.
gonna be cheaper to run it to both places because we're gonna gravity feed the majority of the way.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the topography, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I remember that's how we were originally considering doing this.
This map is all to the village of Champlain.
Yep.
This, how this is right here if you look at it.
Yeah.
This is all to the village.
Because at this time, the village of Rouse's Point, 2014 said, we're not interested in taking any of your sewer,
Right.
period.
Right.
Right. Um,
But that
I think
position may have changed.
Yes.
It has.
It has. I had conversations. with-
Preliminary conversations, they've expressed willingness.
Right.
So it probably should be looked at, I would say, if we're gonna update reports, that probably should be a consideration put in there.
Definitely,
Was this report here, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at, I guess we kinda need that rate from whoever we're gonna go to be able to finish the report, because that's the second half of that user charge that we recommend in the report. So, I mean, ultimately, the report recommends a project, and recommends a cost, and then what the user cost is. And that user cost is dependent on the rate from either village or both.
Okay.
So these will be conversations, you know, if we wanted to meet in June, that would have to happen, start now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, I guess that more than likely, we could handle doing that to get those rates. Yes, I feel we could, agree. We can meet with the two villages and try to negotiate a rate on our own and get back to you on that.
Sure.
And we also need to make the decision if we're gonna move forward or not.
Are you looking for a decision tonight, or are you looking to, do you wanna?
That's up to you guys. Do you wanna discuss this more later? Do you wanna bring it back up, or do you, are you ready to make a decision on that?
I think it's time sensitive, so I think we need to discuss it,
Okay.
and sooner the better, so.
A lot to think about.
Yeah.
Okay. You wanna discuss it later at this meeting?
I would,
Okay.
so,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
Good to see you. So, any other questions? Feel
And-
free to call us, we've got a few hours on the road, we can take calls.
Okay.
And Tom has your email address, so if we need to get other questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you don't make a decision tonight, I would encourage you to perhaps have a special meeting, because waiting till April will
Right.
not be
Right.
conducive to maybe that June deadline.
Right, I agree.
So,
I agree.
Clock is ticking.
Yeah, we'll talk about more, but we can push it forward. All right.
Okay, well, have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming out here. Appreciate it.
No problem.
I'm gonna leave to the back, otherwise everybody's gonna stay.
Have a good night.
You too, bye. Safe travels, we'll be in touch soon. While we're still in the general question period, you guys have anything? No? Well, glad to see you here. Thank you. Okay. Supervisor report is next. Good evening. First and foremost, I and the town of Champlain would like to congratulate Lakeside Coffee on being awarded Small Business of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce this past Saturday. It was so exciting to hear that announced at the Chamber Gala, and we were so proud of their accomplishment, and it was very well deserved. I want to say thank you to both Clinton County and Hudson Headwaters for donations of masks and COVID test kits, which were distributed to our residents of the town. We still have some left if anyone is in need. We still have a fair supply, so if you need them, would like them, please come by. Again, I would like to extend a big thank you to our highway department. They have done an outstanding job taking care of our roads this winter, especially during the last couple of weeks. Again, they, including our highway superintendent, spend many late night and weekend hours keeping the problem areas open due to heavy winds and snowstorms. And the fuel usage is reflective on that.
Yes, it is.
An update on our marketing initiative. We have met with the marketing group from the Chamber of Commerce regarding their website and our objectives. We are currently compiling a comprehensive listing of businesses to provide to the Chamber so they can be included on their websites. The Adirondack Coast, The Good Life, and New York, Montreal. This is a means of getting us advertised quickly while we continue to work on our new website, and Jason will report more about our progress to this project in his report. The Miramar buildings. As reported last month, our codes officer was asked to begin the process to get these buildings secured and compliant to code. Since that process was started, the Miramar Development Corporation contacted Chris Matot with intent to get the buildings secured, and they also asked if the town would have a need for this property to be redeveloped. They also asked, and Chris may add more detail to this in his report. I thought he would be here, so I'll fill it in. I have reached out to the vice president. We are scheduled to have a conversation about this next week. So the initial conversation that he had with Chris was basically, we're gonna take care of it, we're gonna get it buttoned up, sealed up, etc. But what does the town need? Because we're interested in either redeveloping, tearing it down, building something new, or whatever. So I got real excited and sent the email out to him. And in my email, I told him a nice new hotel would be beautiful, so thank you very much, but we'll see what happens, not in those words. But that's why there's a need to have a conversation with him, to see how serious he was about if they are going to invest the money, or if he's looking at finding investors to do it. I don't know what the answer is, but he reached out to say he's wanting to make this right for the town, so that's pretty cool. I will update you after that conversation. We're scheduled for the 11th. I believe that's Friday, right?
Yes.
In regards to the zoning and comprehensive plan, I've been working on the logistics for getting both of these on track to be revised, and also working to find a grant writer to see if there are any funding available for this. So I've spoken to both Liz Tedford and Melissa Mcmanus. Go off track from my paragraph slightly. Liz does facilities only, so as I didn't realize these grant writers specialize in certain fields. Melissa does do this type of work, but after I spoke with her, she is so busy with Tupper Lake, she just can't take it on. I wish that wasn't the case, because she would she would have given us a good deal. So they both recommended River Street Planning and Development, so I've contacted them. I'm hoping to speak with them tomorrow to get that started, to find out what the initial cost would be. In talking to Melissa, it's, we're gonna be required to revise the zoning laws separately to address our immediate needs. As a comprehensive plan will take 2 or more years to complete, by the time you go out and find grant funding and then rewrite the plan. So in order to satisfy our immediate issues such as, you know, the solar, the dispensaries, cannabis dispensaries, what was the other one, the bed and breakfasts, all those things, we're gonna need to do a revision first. So that's what I'm gonna be talking to these people about, is what will be the cost? Are there any grants to help towards even that portion of it? And what's the time frame? Because as you know, we're gonna be putting a moratorium in place that's later in new business. And note to the public, again, we still have COVID test kits, surgical mask and KN95 mask available, and we have those listed on our webpage. Reports from the council members. Ann, can I start on your end this week,
Sure.
or this month?
Well, I don't have a lot to report, but I was able to reach out and talk to somebody that I was on my list to recruit. And they said, yes, they'd be very interested. And they also asked if they could bring their wife, and I thought, you know what, that might be a good idea, having another
Maybe
female
explain to
perspective.
the rest of the board what that panel is about.
Okay.
I'm sure Jason's gonna touch on it too.
Right, about marketing our area and seeing what people are interested in and seeing promoted here, and kind of focusing on what businesses we would like to welcome to our area and what businesses we might not want to. You know, there's, I know that when you were just talking about Miramar, I was thinking about how over in Vermont, they took ground that was a landfill, they covered it over, Captain covered it over, and then they put their wind farm or their solar panels on top of it. Because area that is already kind of, not poisoned, but you know what I mean, already used to a purpose like that, you've got so little that you can do with it. So maybe Miramar wants to a wind farm or something. I mean, but I would rather see them, of course, put a hotel there.
In regards to the landfill, that has been done here before, it's been investigated. Brian, I had asked you to try to re-investigate that to see if it's still the case.
Yeah, I do have information on that.
But of course, our moratorium's gonna put a hold on that anyway. But
Oh, yeah,
You could
right.
still start the talks.
Yeah, I wanted to show you that. The biggest problem is the footprint, you know.
Too small.
Well, it
Yeah,
depends on
limits.
the grants that they get, that drives the entire solar industry, is how much money they get to subsidize their building it. But you never know, I mean, that, you know, you kind of thought of the same thing, I mean, a solar farm is something you can put there. I do have some of the information, I wanna bring it to you and show you what
Okay.
he's done so far.
So yeah, there's a lot of factors, the proximity to the main power lines, the acreage, the amount of solar panels they can
Right,
put on there. So yeah, it's great.
well, I'm sure, anything we go to do is gonna have a lot of different criteria that we are gonna be constrained by, but it's worth investigating the possibilities of.
Everything's worth asking.
Yeah, true. But anyway, that is just one, you know, thing I was thinking of when, with this memorial. I think that is what we have to be protective of, our good land, we only have so much of it, and, you know, we wanna encourage people to come here. And like you said, if we don't have the infrastructure, we can't offer them what they're looking for. So, I'm hopeful that, in the future, we'll be able to, say we have this, this, and this in place, because we've been working towards getting these things improved upon. This, I didn't realize that, how far did those gentlemen have to come from to talk to us?
It tells me that town, it's out near Watertown.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's 3 hours.
It's, I can't think of the name of it right now. It's right near Watertown.
Oh, well, that's where my
It's
son
Rams
lives,
away.
is out that way, out that way. I wondered if
That's
they were.
something, I can't remember that. Anything else, Ann?
No, no, that's it.
Jason?
So I'll kind of feed off of what you've said and what Ann said about the marketing committee. So our meeting with the chamber was, I think, very productive. They made it very clear that they have a lot of, well, maybe for lack of a better word, infrastructure already established through the chamber that we can just kind of work from and piggyback off of. So rather than reinvent the wheel, we're working on reviewing and compiling information that's relevant for the town, that is not showcased on the 3 websites that you mentioned earlier. And we even met, I'm trying to remember what day it was now, it wasn't that long ago, I think it was last week, right?
It was last week.
So we met and we started to work on that list, and we're continuing to add to that list, and then sending that information off to the chamber so they can review what they have on their website, stuff that's not listed, stuff that is listed that needs to be punched up, or, just overall better representation of the town of Champlain in all aspects. That includes both the villages as well. So we're starting baby steps with the idea that hopefully that will expand into what we're hoping is to be our kind of hub center for both the villages and the town to kind of all live on this virtual world, this website that we're hoping will function for everybody. So very successful, and they're very, I don't know, the chamber seems very interested in having us be a part of things. So I think that's nice that they
Very
do.
accommodating.
Yeah. So I guess if there's anybody out there watching this and listening, and you are a business owner, you are involved with the community some way, shape, or form, and feel like there's something we're not promoting, if you are looking out into the world of what the chamber has set up, or let us know, because that's part of the process here. We're trying to find things, but we are also using the resources we have available to us, and we may not have all the information. So, this goes back to asking people about the business director. This goes right into that. We're trying to feed that in. The Village Rouse's Point website actually is very good with their business director. They have a lot of good stuff on there. The other thing is the work of the marketing committee to try to move forward on our promotion of the town. I've done some work, making some phone calls, making some connections, and as I talked with Tom and Ann about, it's a little larger of a project than I think I originally thought to do it right. So if we're gonna do it right, we're gonna need to break it up. I talked with the videographer and editor that is agreed to work on our project, and it was thought that we really should have 2 different messagings for the kind of target audiences that we want. So the first and foremost, the bringing people here to live here, raise families here, and the ideas of tourism is really one message and centered on a specific group of people. And then there is the other message and the other group of people, which is the commercial entrepreneurship development group. So we're really kind of looking at 2 different audiences with sometimes overlapping messages, but the messages are very pointed to those audiences, which I didn't originally think about, but that's what he brought to our attention. So that makes our focus now a little more pointed. We're gonna work on A, and then we'll work on B.
Right.
So right now, we're currently working on building an ad hoc committee that is just going to kind of throw some ideas around from different different demographic backgrounds in the town of Champlain, representing not just the town, but both the villages, and getting them to the table and kind of
In different age groups.
in different age groups, yep, so those different demographics, looking at trying to get their opinions as to what should be showcased in our promotions. So it's not just coming out of our heads, but we're actually hearing what other people have to say about it. Stuff that we would overlook. What is the 20-year-old who lives in the township value and thinks should be promoted versus the 65-year-old versus the 40-year-old who's got 2 kids, like that kind of stuff. So we're I think really we're working on that, and we're hoping to have that meeting within, I think, a few weeks, if we can hack it, or 3, our goal is soon, so.
And within 2 weeks was our goal.
Yes, so we'll sit down for a couple of hours and try to basically kind of run a brainstorming session, yes.
So in terms of the videographer, Jason, are we looking, is this gonna be a shared service between all 3 municipalities? I guess this is my first question.
Yeah.
And number 2, in speaking with a videographer, what are they looking at in terms of estimation for cost? I'm just
Well,
curious.
that's what we need to do, is we need to actually formulate a budget, so we're waiting to get costs
Okay,
Yes,
from Boyer Benner.
yes,
You have an estimate from the videographer.
correct. But
Okay.
I don't have the estimate from the Boyer Benner group.
okay.
It's, they're in contact with me, but I have not been able to get a full conversation in. So we're kind of playing phone tag right now. But yes, as we go to formulate the budget, and I know that's what the villages are looking for too, they're kind of looking for a big picture here so they can get that into their budgets as we try to move forward. And we have some estimations, but it depends on, there's several factors, the kind of work that is done by the videographer and Boyer Benner, it's how much they have to do on their own.
How much we can do.
How much we can do and what we supply, and all of that gets added into the cost. So if we can pick up some of the helpful parts here that they won't have to do,
Mhm.
the cost comes down, so.
Is it something that we could maybe even bring in like WCFE? I mean, they've got people on site that I'm sure have those types of talents, aptitudes that maybe can, for the betterment of the community also.
Yeah, I think there's
Something to
options.
consider.
Yeah, I think there's options, and as far as Tom's conversations with the villages, I believe the agreement is that the villages are interested in looking at kind of it's a partnership on this marketing campaign where, because we can all benefit from it, so.
Yes, they're very interested in making a partnership, but also we need to come up with what's the cost gonna be, to
Yeah.
see if it's affordable for everyone.
Yeah.
What kind of timeline are you looking at with this ad hoc committee? And how are you looking to kind of gather the representatives that will be part of that ad hoc committee?
Well, we formulated a list in the last meeting, and we divvied it up and made phone calls, so I've called all the people that were on my list.
I have only one left, yes, so, and I've had fairly positive response, so many of the, yeah. So I think we'll have quite a good crew of people to toss some ideas around, and then, so the videographer needs that kind of information in order to then build the story that we wanna tell. And then it becomes, if we can hit, there's still winter right now, so if we can even get our list together early enough, we thought maybe we might even be able to get a little bit of filming in before the winter is over this year.
Yeah, not that we're looking to get the winter scenes up first on the website.
Right.
If you get them and you put them in the library, you don't have to worry about it next year, we've
Right.
got it.
Means-
Because otherwise, we have to wait till next, probably February, to
Right.
get ice fishing out there.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, the ice fishing
Yes.
and snowmobiles and things of that
Yeah,
nature.
that's
and we're probably missing the window as the weather keeps warming things up and
Yes.
melting ice, but.
So so again, in talking with the project timeline, if we don't do any winter filming at this point, which, we're gonna try, that's our goal, but if that doesn't happen, we would be doing summer filming to start the project, and then fall, and then as soon as we can get, but the problem is that we're probably talking then another year out, because the lake has to freeze to a certain degree before we can actually do that realistically, and so, so this is not something that's gonna happen overnight, but it will be, I think, well, a very good quality product when we're all done with it. So there's marketing, I think I covered that. And then the other thing I'll just mention is the Hometown Heroes banners. Right now, we have 10 applications. We definitely could use more. The deadline is March 11th, so anybody that's interested in putting in an application, please contact Sarah Gagno here at the town office, and she'll get you the appropriate information so we can make sure that you are represented with our Hometown Heroes banner initiative. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that's it for me.
Thanks, Jason.
Mhm.
Brian?
Josh Howell from the local Little League program contacted me about a grant, get copies out.
Yep. I know what you mean.
Very short grant, but I just need permission to proceed with it. There's no cost to the town. And on the back, it tells you the criteria and the application deadlines. It appears you qualify for everything. But I imagine the competition is severe because it's nationwide,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but it seems pretty simple, so I just like permission to do the application.
Well, the submission being March 13th,
Yeah.
I think we gotta get going.
Well, I went 2 pages into it, and it wasn't bad, but I didn't wanna go any further because they keep your data. I don't trust a lot of these groups, but I did go to the first couple of pages, and it was pretty simple. So I can do that tomorrow.
You guys agree? I mean, I think if you're willing to do it, I'd like you to go forward with it. It'll help the parks.
I'll make a motion then that we give Brian permission to move forward with submitting the application for the Scottsfield refurbishment program.
Second?
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
And I don't know if I mentioned, it would be for the Bob Ben part.
Sure. Seems like a logical candidate.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to state that the Clinton County Health Department is doing their community health assessment for 2022. You may have heard about it or seen it. It will be on our website. The survey is very good in that it provides a lot of information, which you touched on a little bit, is it asks what people want for their communities. And we actually used information from that survey the last time they did it for the Perry's Mills Recreation Grant. So it would be good if anybody in the town wants to do it. It will be on our websites through the Clinton County Health Department. And the website is surveymonkey.com. I don't know.
They often use that.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, so we would encourage people to,
yes, and the information's here, but we'll put it up on the website also,
okay?
if anybody's interested. And, that's all I think,
That's all you have?
unless I'm missing something.
Did you wanna touch on the rec trail grants at all, or you want to hit that now? In regards to Elena and the
Well-
county?
We are applying for a recreation grant through Clinton County Health Department to bring everybody up to speed. And there's, Melena has come up with a finalized, what I believe is a finalized budget.
Yeah, I provided copies
Yes.
of that to you.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if there was still,
And we had to, and just so you know, I just thought it'd be a good time to discuss it, we had to order the delineators, the ones that she recommended.
Yes.
You can probably see it in the budget.
Yeah.
Mine's in front of me.
$1,068.
Yeah, so, real quick, during your report, if you don't mind, we'll talk about that. So those blew down, okay? And, the county does not want us bolting them in place, because that's what Alan wanted to go for, was the bolt down and then remove the bolts in the fall.
yeah,
Well, the county did put that pavement in, and they don't want us penetrating the pavement and leaving holes in it, so. The question is, we'll let them install these are gonna be at the head of the trail, right? Where it meets the
You
road.
mean, you mean, the health department, or?
Yeah, we'll let them install them, but they're coming here. So we use those as a trial. The question is, Alan and I discussed it, they have these weighted ones. Do we wanna buy a couple of these to put out here in the wind and see how they react? Or do we wanna just wait and see how this portion works before we go any further with buying more on our own? Cause that's where we're at, is the rest of it would be our responsibility.
I guess my question would be is what other municipalities actually use this same delimiter?
Plattsburgh,
Delineator, I should say.
Plattsburgh, has used them.
And what kind of problems have they run into with the use of those
With-
if they're not bolted?
With removing them, I'd asked Alan to call the, it's not the superintendent, but the head of that DPW crew.
Okay.
Because Malena had spoke with them, and he said they're easy to put, they're not that hard to pull up, and they
Right.
glue back down the following year. And there's also, is it Charles Weiss?
Right,
Not Charlie.
Weiss.
Carl,
Weiss,
Carl,
Weiss.
Carl Weiss. He's another one to speak of, because he's had experience with them as well. Alan hasn't had time to call him. He agreed because it had to be ordered on Monday, to just go ahead and order them, and he said, don't worry about talking to them about removing them afterwards, but they both said, apparently, that they're not that big of a deal to remove.
And you're talking epoxy.
Yeah, because you gotta pull them up in the fall, you can't.
Right.
Yeah, well, that was, when I was talking with Alan, but neither of us could figure out how you, if you epoxy it down, how is that easily removable? You know?
And also just in terms of maintenance and then reapplying them. You know, so in other words, how much time is required to do something like that versus the weighted?
Right, so what, I was gonna go ahead and order some, but Alan and I thought if we could order 4 of these, they're $29.95 each, put them out in the parking lot here,
Right?
and just see if they stay in place.
You're talking about the weighted ones?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll find
Yeah.
use for them, if it doesn't work out, we'll have use for them.
That's what I'm thinking, for temporary usage, they'd be perfect, and if they work right, fine, then we might try them on Prospect.
Right, so you okay with ordering, basically, what is it, $120 worth? As a
Yeah.
trial?
I mean, I think Rouse's Point uses those for their crosswalks.
They
the
do.
weighted ones. And they've been beat up a lot, but they seem to have survived.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is that what you use for the, if you don't mind me asking, Brian?
They're like a cow mat, it's a thick rubber cow mat that's on the bottom, probably 2 feet by, I don't know, 10 inches wide, they're pretty heavy.
They're weighted, yeah.
They're weighted,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a
I
thick
think
rubber.
it's very similar to a.
And you haven't had any problems with them blowing over with the wind
No, not
or
with the wind.
people hit them?
Usually, of course, cars or
Vehicles.
trailers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm fine with it.
All right,
Moving
so
forward
we'll-
with at least seeing.
yeah, and we can always use them.
Not for that small amount, will just be in next month's bills.
Okay.
Okay, we'll try that. Anything else, Brian? And by the way, the first 4,000 is on its way in regards to the grant. It's gonna cover the delineators, it was all on that list, on that budget
Yeah.
sheet I set by,
Yeah,
Brad.
with the yellow highlighting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the money, the other 4,000, will be for all the signage on the trail, for the wayfarer and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's good. So, it looks like we'll be close to being on par with the budget that she mentioned,
I think so.
28,000.
Yep.
And we are planning on, well, I don't know if we're gonna get to it, but we are planning on finishing the paving, not as part of that project, but as part of completing.
Yeah, that's a potential projects I put listed together, I put here.
One of the 6 items.
Yeah, it's one
Yeah,
of them. We'll have to, we're gonna have to get costs to each of these so we can prioritize.
Right.
yeah, but I mean, I think
I
that's,
just wanted it on paper so we wouldn't miss anything.
that's a number one you know, along with the backup generators, that to me is a safety issue. Getting that paved.
Yeah, I took your list of 6 and kind of prioritized where I felt that the majority of the need was based upon safety first and then other things.
Right,
Um,
I guess we put 7,500 next to number 4 now.
While we're on that topic, are you all set, Brian?
Yes.
I gave Brian an emergency response plan for the Harry J. Mcmanus Recreation Trail. Something that I think we ought to, you know, put in place, because that trail is quite a lengthy trail. So what I did is I went out and I kind of researched some similar types of response plans for other trails. And some of the recommendations that I have are to, one, with trailhead post, put a actual holder where we can put trail maps on there. And with inside of the trail maps, you can actually have like contact information, emergency contact information, who to call, and how to get a hold of people. Not only putting trail maps on the trail, but also forwarding our trail maps to emergency services as well as the local EMS and fire departments on an annual basis, so that they know. Each of those particular trailhead posts would be numbered, so that you could see exactly where, if there was an emergency, you know, we're at such and such a location, here's the nearest access point, so that emergency services can get there as soon as possible.
Yeah, I talked to, Mr. Donahue, what's his first name?
Kelly.
Kelly, thank you. Kelly Donahue, in regards to that recently, when he was in here delivering test kits.
Right.
And he came up with an idea of just attaching a 911 address to each entrance or exit to the trail. So
Right.
using odd numbers, I believe it was for the east facing
Mm-hmm.
entrances, and even numbers for the west.
Right.
So that can be in addition to that. So if people were there have to be a sign that they need to pay attention that they're entering this
Right.
specific area, whatever happens to be labeled by him, that would send an EMS to that section of the trail. So very similar to that, but we need to probably.
And I came up with just a 5-step emergency action plan that I think looks at everything from letting somebody know that it's on the trail, just to number one, of course, assess the situation, determine what the nature of the emergency is, what type of response is required. Is it just first aid? Is it a young child that's lost? Or whatever the case might be. 2, develop a response plan based upon the nature of the emergency. Develop an appropriate response plan based upon the closest access point, which I think is critical, along with that trailhead post number, as I already mentioned. 3, if needed, call for assistance using provided emergency numbers found in the trail maps. That's the purpose behind the trail map. And on the trailhead post. And then step 4, while waiting for emergency services / first responders, the following guidelines can be put in place. If needed, call 911, emergency medical services, and provide the following information, because a lot of times people get caught up and it's very emotional, they don't know what to say and how to say it. So on the map, it would actually indicate, number 1, your nearest location in regards to the trailhead post, also closest access point locator number. Make the victim feel comfortable as possible, protect the victim from any outlying weather or elements. 3, stay with the victim until emergency services / first responders arrive on the scene. And last, if you are with other parties, have one person go to the nearest access point to kind of lead those emergency personnel to that actual site of where the emergency is. Because that trail is very kind of, you know, winding. And so you don't know exactly where that particular person might be. And then last is to just add that emergency action plan checklist for parties to the recreation trail, so.
Okay, so how do we wanna move forward with that? Do you wanna work on that to kind of define exactly what that's gonna look like?
I pretty much have an idea what it's gonna look like.
And maybe get with Kelly?
I can
as
do
well?
that, I can do that. If you can give me his contact information, I can do that.
Yeah, get with Kelly and see if you can define exactly what we need, if it's a combination of what he was thinking in this.
Right.
Or what, for this is.
And I didn't know in terms of like how that's going to relate to what you have already, you're talking about the $4,000 has already been purchased. In terms of those posts, you know, you're gonna wanna make sure that those posts are numbered. and I'm not so sure that they are.
Yeah.
So-
We could even get numbers, you know.
And we could place them on there, but I'm just saying, it's something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. So we gotta tie it together.
Right.
Okay.
So, also in terms of EDUs, I've gone through, there's been 5 submittals in regards to EDU appeals. Our committee is hopefully going to meet this Friday at 10:30 to kind of discuss those 5 appeals, and then we'll get back to those residential or commercial owners in regards to what the appeal committee decides. In regards to the response to the Village of Champlain, I heard from Kim that the actual water board would be back in touch with us. I have not heard anything yet in regards to our response regarding the water board document from November of 2021. So as soon as I hear something more there, I will kind of get in touch with everybody. I reached out to the 2 fire departments, their actual captains. At this time, there's really nothing to report. Chris has been sending me the monthly minutes, so I can see what's going on in terms of the Village of Champlain, also Mike LeBlanc in the Village of Rouse's Point. So there's nothing really right now to report in regards to that. I do have some dates just for the public. The Village of Rouse's Point is going to run their village-wide yard sale on June 18th, 2022. Also, the Stars and Stripe, which is the July 4th celebration in Rouse's Point, is going to be June 24th through the 26th. And also, that's it for me for now.
Is that for dates?
Okay.
Thank you, Rick.
Yep.
Report from the town clerk.
You have your monthly report for approval.
I make a motion that we approve the town clerk's monthly report for February.
Have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Julie, does this reflect the change, we changed the prices, right?
Yeah, all the changes have been made for the dog licenses, yes.
Okay, very good.
Any further discussion? Do a roll call on that, do
Yeah.
we?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I just wanna let everybody know that if anybody hasn't paid their taxes, I'm still collecting taxes to the end of April. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Now, a review of post audit bills. We have their abstract. And so in regards to the post audit, the abstract, we all reviewed it, and I welcome a motion to approve that.
Are we approving just the abstract, or are we going them separate, Tom? or-
Yeah, let's do them separate,
Okay.
put them on the agenda separately, so I think we should do it that way.
All right. I'll make a motion if someone else doesn't want to approve the abstract as submitted.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Now, with the approval of the monthly bills, we have some additions. Did you all receive that? The additional billing for vendor fleet pride, Christmas Hawks, training expenses for meals, and then North Country Door Systems.
Now, are there future highway doors that are gonna have to be replaced, or is this the one and only moving forward? The North Country Door Systems?
I think this is the one and only moving
Okay.
forward, if I understood correctly.
All
This
right.
is one that was left.
It's been in the pipeline for a while, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Any questions on,
The only question I have in regards to the bills was, on page 3 of the bills, there's a charge to the highway department for a mailbox.
yep,
Was that a mistake that was made where we had to replace a mailbox, or is that, what is that?
well,
I
it's
guess
not a
is my question.
it's not a mistake, it's a, it's the nature of the beast when you're plowing snow.
That's what I
yes.
thought, I just wanted to be sure.
And a mailbox was taken out, and,
Someone's
although we're not required to replace them.
Correct.
You're putting your mailbox out there at risk in the North Country, that's, how
So
it is.
true.
But in this case, Alan felt it was best to replace it to,
Some of the mailboxes, I know, at least in the village, maybe Jason could attest to this, some of the people put their mailboxes very close or in a very awkward location, where even when you turn off of one street onto another, the mailbox is very close to the road, so I can imagine that Alan's crew really has to deal with a lot of
doesn't even have to be hit by the wind either.
No, it could
Sometimes
be
you hit heavy
the
slush
ice, right?
and ice, and that can take it out.
Correct, correct.
But either way, yeah, I questioned it as well, but it was felt it was best to spend $120 compared to not,
Right, I agree. No, I just wanted to be certain that's what it was.
okay?
I'll make a motion to approve the bills.
Thank you, second please.
I'll second.
Any further discussion in regards to them?
Well, you know what, maybe that person that lost the mailbox, it didn't just happen to them once, it could have been like a repeat thing.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, because it's blinding out there, I don't know how they managed to, you know,
To
do
avoid
what they do.
I know.
Right,
It's
exactly.
Really a rough job.
Let me talk on it.
Okay, so we have two motions. Since these bills are not paid yet, should I do a roll call? Or we go just, I think we should because it's money gonna be spent.
Councilmember Rochester,
I,
Councilmember Bory,
Aye.
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Hunter,
Aye.
Supervisor Trombley.
Aye. Thank you. And do you have copies of this, or was this just provided to me? The platform.
I brought mine from prior, so, yep.
So here's where we're at with the platform. It is almost a finished product. It's, I believe the last two sections are at Elegance Coating being painted today. I spoke with John Trombley today. This number is sound.
Okay.
Okay? So, what we'd like to do is transfer money from, let's see, SW7, which is -201.00, the water savings, to SW7-200, water checking, in an amount of $13,121.88. That would be our portion based off the EDU ratio of the O&M.
Yep.
So in regards to that, we'll get that done first. I'd like a motion to make that transfer.
I make a motion that we move money to the SW7 checking account in the amount of $13,121.88 to satisfy this particular contract.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll just add that a red flag was raised today by John, because we started talking about scheduling installation. He went down there, he got a hold of Woody, got in there to do some final measuring. They found a heater. You were with me the day we went down there and measured, right? Apparently it was a heater by the door end where the ladder's gonna be. It was right in the way, hanging from the ceiling. The village had a contractor in there moving some piping to do the water system, which is gonna show up in the O&M next year. It was something that was broke, I don't know what it was. I'll get you details. They happened to be there that day, so they also moved the heater out of the way, so that's now moved. There will be a bill. I spoke to the mayor, I'd like it separate, because I'd like the O&M portion to go in the O&M for next year's water. Moving this should be attached to part of this cost, but it's gonna be minimal. It was a few hours' work, so I don't have a cost yet, sure I have the bill. but it's gonna come at a later date, so next month we'll be looking at that. Then John realized that the overhead door wasn't looked at in the track for a door, which is gonna be sitting right over the top of the platform where they load, or where they take the sand off the pallet. I was speaking to him tonight, just before the meeting, because I checked my emails, and he emailed me late this afternoon. I need to meet with the village. Brian, you're welcome to come, but I'm gonna try to do it tomorrow. I'll try to set something up. There's 5 foot 10 inches of headspace from the platform to that rail of the garage door. So it's kind of like, do we just mark it and call it a day, foam it, mark it with safety tape to make sure that they're aware that it's there? Or do we lower the legs and lower the platform to gain more head clearance, which would give you a little more head clearance underneath, a little less head clearance underneath? Either way, there's no additional charge. I asked him, I said, will there be a cost involved in cutting those legs and changing the height of the platform? He goes, no, I can absorb it. He goes, it's gotta be right.
I would recommend, because you don't know who your village staff is gonna be working, it could be people over 6 foot.
Well, we got 6 footers now.
Yeah, so I would recommend cutting off the legs and
Yeah,
appropriately.
I just gotta go talk to Mike and the mayor and see if they agree, but I don't disagree with that, Rick. So we'll be taking care of that tomorrow, but at least we know that the quote stands the same, okay? Unfortunately, as Sarah would call it, oops.
These are
Okay.
called work change orders.
Oh.
There you go.
You just go with it.
Report from the codes enforcement officer, you all have a copy of the report. If there's anything that you wanna ask on, I may be able to answer because I've sat with them, and, a lot of these I could answer your questions. And then he had a request. And I kinda liked his idea. He would like to discontinue this lengthy bullet item list to this detail, if he could generalize instead. I guess instead of issued each separate permit, issued X number of permits, 3 commercial, 2 commercial, 1 residential, whatever it is. I told him I'd find out how you guys felt about it, because this report is for all of us. Or do you like this level of detail? It takes him some time, so I'm sure that's why he's asking that question. What he does is, he pretty much has to keep this going every day and keep adding to his report.
I do kind of like the detail because
Okay.
it does explain, what's going on in town.
And I would really expect the detail when we're referencing specific residential or commercial businesses
Okay.
where we're addressing something. So if somebody asks us in the community about such and such, I don't know. I know nothing about it. This at least gives us some type of
Point of
idea,
reference.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does, so.
Not that I wanna make Chris's workload larger, but,
Yeah, he is spread thin.
he is.
The only thing, I mean, it's his report, I guess he can present it the way he wants. Maybe some kind of a template that could be developed, that he then just punches in the information as, if there's, there's a permit section and he just puts in that, and I had to go and check on this, and that fits in this category, as opposed to, maybe it's the running list that seems to be daunting, but if he has like a template where it's kind of, I'm sure a lot of the tasks here are fairly similar month to month, so then maybe they're just broken down into categories and he's just filling in the info now, and maybe sometimes it's numbers, or maybe sometimes it's specific, but it's still telling us he was doing it based on, I had to go, you know, this was water issues that I had to deal with, and that's in a category, and it's maybe, I don't know.
And it's maybe like Ridge Road, Route 11.
Correct, so maybe it cuts down on the amount of actual typing he has to do if he's just filtering it into that's a suggestion, I mean, it's his report.
Okay.
I
Did
don't-
Mickey do a report like this?
No,
No? Because I,
This has been a welcome addition.
this is
to our-
what, very welcome,
Yes.
and it gives us, you know, insight to certain individuals or businesses that Chris has had to deal with, that we had no idea. Somebody would, as I indicated, approach us in the community, and we'd be like, I don't know, I'll have to find out for you.
yeah.
Yeah, and it gives you a chance to see what he's doing exactly.
Correct.
You know, you saw the new construction going up, and yeah, he's on top of it. Instead of asking him, you know, did they do a permit or anything? He's got it right here, so you've got a way to double check.
I'll talk to him, I'll let him know that the level of detail is important, still welcomed by the board, but I'll give him your idea, because I can kind of envision that too, if he had a,
I'm not against
basically a table.
letting him try it, Tom, to put together what he thinks would be a suitable, informative document,
Okay.
and we can look at it and see. And if we don't feel it's detailed enough, then we can ask him to go back to this.
Elaborate.
Okay,
So, that's,
I'll give him your thought.
That's the
as well.
best I
That's a
can
good
do.
idea. I think that'd be pretty easy. Okay. Nothing to report from the highway superintendent. And a report from the dog control officer, you all have that. Here, I will tell you that he has scheduled a meeting with me. I don't have any detail, he went over it briefly today when he was in. He is actually asking to try to merge the Shazy and Beatontown. I'll give you more detail, I guess, at the next meeting, but if I understood it correctly, it's because a lot of these dogs are wandering around, they're getting picked up in one township and then reported in the other. You know, somebody, they put them in their car and take them home, and they call them. And for liability reasons, he'd like to work under one umbrella for the three towns. So it's gonna cause, first I have to meet with him, and I'll have to meet with the other two supervisors and see if this is possible or not. I gotta get more details.
Are they towns
I'll
that-
just give you that heads up.
Are they towns he's already servicing?
Yeah.
So it's less of a problem
Yeah.
if we did do it.
Yeah, he's already servicing them, but serving each of us separately. He said it would reduce costs, so I need to find out. Well,
Shared services,
I know, so I said, when you come to the table of the meeting, please bring some information with you. And we'll let you know. But yeah, it might save money, we'll see. Okay, any questions on his report? Correspondence, we have Charter Communications. And I put in the, there's my copy. The TikTok group, if you saw that or not, that was, the generator replacement. Do you want us to move forward with that, or do you wanna wait and get the cost for these other items on this list of projects?
for me, that was the number one priority on your list of 6, so I think we could move forward, but I don't know what the rest of you feel.
do we need a quote, at least from other companies?
We fall under the criteria, so basically that amount falls within what's allowed by New York State, right? For not requiring quotes. I visited our procurement policy, and it is so old that the quote is like, the amount is a third less than that, but thankfully they did put the wording in there, or according to New York State. So it works. I'd like to revise it to make it sound better, but either way, I think it was a good idea they did that. They did allow you to stay underneath the umbrella of the state. So we're not required to. Would you like to we can, if you would like to, we can go out and get other quotes just for comparison, that's not a bad thing. I'm just stating we're not required to.
Yeah, right.
I don't think it hurts to get additional quotes as
Okay.
long as the specs that are indicated on here are appropriate. The one question I did have is in terms of, and Brian, you could probably answer this for me. They talk about a 200A three-phase ATS versus a 100A three-phase ATS. What's the difference between that? Is it of the actual wattage or load? I don't know what's the difference between the two?
Yeah,
Don't know.
I agree.
Automatic transfer switch.
Is that what it is?
One's a 100 amp rating, one's a 200.
Okay,
It's larger, one's
Okay.
larger than the
all right. So
Thank-
one has a
thanks,
heavier
Brian.
draw. Thank you very much.
It's a generator, which are, you know, fairly common, you know, I think they're 80%, roughly, the home installation generators are about 80%, so it shouldn't be too hard to get a couple quotes.
Right.
Yeah, we'll just go to a couple different vendors and quote out the same equipment.
Yeah, I mean, it looks a lot better, especially, it's so close to 35,000, you know. You're gonna be on that next meeting, you know.
Okay, we can do that. Did you catch the diesel comparison sheet? When you're looking at your comparison spreadsheets, the diesel stood out, of course,
Yeah. How about 10 grand?
of about $10,000, but it's not all in the additional cost of the diesel, it's because the 2 winters are so different as well, because we burned about an extra 1,000 gallons of fuel, so, because of the additional plowing. Alan wanted that broke down in that fashion, so I thought it'd be good to share it with you. Okay,
Yeah, it's been there over the winter.
Yeah, that's-
and then we already went over the Complete Streets concept plan budget. No further things there. And that's it. I do have a copy in my file there. I didn't get shared with you guys. All this is, Brian, this is regards to Complete Streets project. These are the trees. So they quoted us a maple, Canadensis, I don't even know what kind of tree that is. The maples anyways were $200 each, and we have plenty of time, so Alan's gonna get some quotes on trees. If we're able to buy our own, if we find a better buy, we can buy more trees.
The village of Champlain buys trees for Arbor Day, or they get some,
Yeah,
maybe that's a possibility,
yeah.
that you can put some trees in the village when we do their Arbor Day.
Yeah, it is better to plant them in the fall though. Alan was looking at fall for planting.
Mm.
I can mention it to him. I'll talk to Janet, I'll talk.
Yeah, just see what
Janet
she
where-
gets
Because
and
I
where she
don't remember
gets
where we got them.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyways, we are able to purchase those separately, thankfully, and that was just a comparison quote that she gave us. Okay, under new business. Want to introduce local law number 1 to the board. You've had a chance to review it. Local law entitled Local Law Number 1 of the year 2222, imposing a temporary town-wide moratorium on the installation of freestanding or ground-mounted solar energy systems. I'll just read the purpose and intent. I'm assuming you guys have had time to read the rest of this. The purpose of this local law is to protect public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the town of Champlain and to maintain the status quo as to certain solar energy uses. As the present zoning regulations in the town do not adequately address this type of use. The moratorium will stop the processing of applications for and the issuance of any permits, certificates of occupancy, and approvals for certain land uses related to solar energy, including but not limited to solar farms. The moratorium is for a period of 12 months, allowing the town board to analyze and determine potential appropriate revisions and amendments to the town Champlain zoning code concerning this use. And this moratorium will be imposed for a period of 12 months.
And then if we needed, we could go an additional 6 months just by passing a resolution.
Correct. If we don't get our zoning, and for the public, so you understand why we're doing this, is we don't feel that we should allow solar farms such as the one being installed currently on Route 11 to be anywhere along that Route 11 corridor. We need to determine what properties we want to put them on. We have a infrastructure running through there. We're trying to develop that for commercial and for residential land. And therefore, we're not against solar farms. We just want to define where we want to allow them. And that's where we're going to have to redo our zoning and, in addition, our comprehensive plan. If we had time, we did a plan first. But this is the introduction of law. Now the law will have to be advertised. It has an aging process of, I believe it's 10 days, so we're gonna age it until next month. Next month's meeting, we will have to have a public hearing. At the beginning of the meeting, my question to you is, do we wanna have that public hearing at 6:30 and then go into our business meeting afterwards?
That's what we've done in the past.
Yeah, usually it's been like 15 minutes.
Correct.
Because-
Typically into the meeting.
Yeah, to get into the meeting, so that's at 6:45, if that's all right.
Yep.
Does work for them.
Yep, 6:45. Is that the 12th?
April 12th.
April 12th, yeah.
So did the Titanic sink?
Really?
Quite an analogy.
Yeah.
No comparison to whatever's going on here.
I hope there's no reason you mentioned that.
No, just popped into my head at the date.
That's a cool fact to have up there. Any, so I guess, there's no motion to be made on this tonight.
Well, just a motion to have the public hearing.
True, yeah, we do need a motion for that. So a motion for 6:45 on April 12th for a public hearing regarding local law number 1.
I'll make the motion to have that public hearing.
I
Okay,
second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. And old business, that takes care of 1 and 2 on new business. Old business is the appointment of an alternate to the ZBA. I did meet with Natasha, and Tracy was here as well. And we feel that she'd be a fine addition. She understands the importance of the job. We very stressed that training was very much needed. The whole board needs training. I've sent them PDFs that was provided by, what was the man's name from the county, Julie?
Glenn Cutter.
Glenn Cutter. And they're hoping to have a in-session training sometime late summer, early fall, I believe, right?
Yes.
In which I'm going to hope that we can get both the planning and zoning board to attend those trainings. That's critical. So I would, I guess I would just ask permission to do that appointment of Natasha Nevius to the ZBA board.
I'll make a motion to approve Natasha Nevis to the zoning board of appeals
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
as an alternate, should mention.
As an alternate.
Yeah, she is filling an alternate position, that's correct.
Yeah. Seconded as amended.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Um,
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
Do we wanna mention about the what, Clinton County that Calvin sent with the flood?
Oh,
For-
yeah,
Just for the public, I think, so they know.
yes, thank you. I have that on the agenda. So what that is the FEMA has redesignating the floodplain here in the county, okay? And I'm sure that the village has received something as well. They sent us pre-printed labels to all the properties owners, all the residents that are being affected, who were not in the floodplain prior, but will be in the floodplain now. And that affects a lot of folks. You know how many we
You
sent out?
said 92. That's all
92.
right, I think it
Wow.
was 92.
That is pretty good.
That is a lot.
That's a lot,
I think that's what it was.
yeah.
I think it was 1,000 countywide,
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
1,000.
I think it's
1,000
92
properties.
in our township, not counting the village of Champlain.
Correct.
They got their own. It might have been 82, but it's in that vicinity. For an example, Point of Fair, it's like all of Point of Fair is now in the floodplain.
Right.
Where before, yeah,
Does that surprise me? No.
Yeah.
yeah, so were you in it prior?
I know that I couldn't get
So
to
you're
my
probably gonna
house for
receive-
6 weeks.
You're probably gonna receive a letter. The letter is urging you to contact your insurance agent to look at flood insurance now rather than later, because the county is recommending that it's gonna be a cost savings if you are proactive.
Correct.
And there's also a contact name and number in the letter, the person at the county that can explain things in better detail than I could. And I got her permission to do that. I said I'd just as soon not be the middleman. And, but yeah, there's a lot of properties, a lot of them in Paris Mills that are affected too.
And it's not cheap, I can tell you that owning property that's in a flood zone area, it's gonna run you at least $500 a year.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna make it more difficult to build in
Correct.
that area too.
Correct.
No, right, that's the other thing too, if you're planning on building in those locations, now you've got some requirements.
I agree.
Oh, yeah, and you've got, the bank has their.
Well, they require it
They
before you can
require
move
it,
forward,
yeah.
yeah.
And, it's a lot harder to get a building permit, to build, put a garage up or anything of that nature, you've gotta build it to certain standards and. I noticed Calvin was wondering if we could send a letter to him, stating our feelings on this matter. And I'm wondering if we could, send Calvin something saying that we think it needs more time to get public opinion. It's such a huge change, 1,000
Right.
properties in the county, roughly 90 just in the town. May 17th isn't a lot of time to get this information out there and back, and we feel it needs a thorough consideration
Right.
because it's such a change in the floodplain law.
Is it something we can put on the outgoing water bill to just kind of let residents know that, if you are somebody that now, with a change in this plan, to look forward to this?
Well, I think that.
How soon will they
letter-
receive
I think the
that?
letter
They'll get-
explains it.
Yeah, I think it went out today.
Did it go out today, Calvin?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, it did, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then it doesn't.
They should be getting it.
Yeah, and
Good.
it's all, targeted to those property owners.
Correct. Right.
But a letter to the county asking for,
Yeah, we're concerned that this step should be taken under careful consideration because of the side effects.
Ramifications, yeah.
Ramifications.
There's
It's
a lot of
just-
ramifications.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, I don't wanna go home and tell my husband about that one.
if you look at the map now, there's a lot of the towns in the
Right.
flood zone
That are affected.
that are affected already. And once you're on, you can get off it, but it's a super expensive undertaking. You gotta get a surveyor, you gotta get a land use planner.
Unless you don't have a mortgage.
Right, but to like build,
Correct.
build something,
You don't know
and
what-
also, if you do go to sell in the future,
Right.
somebody's looking at that and they're going, holy mackerel, it's in a floodplain, zone.
Right.
Getting out of it is a lot harder than it is to get into it. So, it might be something that we, want the county to, or want Calvin to approach the county and see if they can delay it or get us more information. This is serious, I mean,
It is.
and also, it may lower your assessment. When you think about it, you weren't in a floodplain before, and now you are, that
Yeah,
lowers your value.
I think it's a possibility, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd read it. I'm not suggesting that, but,
All right, I'll draft something up, I'll get back with you.
yeah, I mean, it's just, Calvin thought we should give him a letter with our thoughts.
Okay.
Tom, is this something that has to be done? Sarah said something, or is that the same transfer? Is this
Oh,
a
yes.
different
That
one?
transfer has to be approved.
This one does too.
Where was that one? That one wasn't on my
Yes.
list.
It wasn't, I didn't get it either, but I know that it
Can I
was.
see it?
Yeah,
Let me see it.
That's changing from one fund to another.
Correct.
It hasn't changed the total amount or anything, it's just
Changing the accounts.
Yeah,
yeah,
changing
just
the
the
account.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see that. Well, let's take care of this. So, we're gonna need a motion to, go from B dash 1990-400, safety inspection dash personal, what's SBC for?
what is it?
Oh, personal services.
Services, yeah.
Yeah, personal services, the amount is $16,431. To B dash 3620-100, safety inspection code, same amount, $16,431.
I'll make a motion that we transfer the funds from that account to the other account as read by the supervisor.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I didn't have that in my list. Thank you very much. Before we adjourn, just one last time, if anybody wants to say anything over here, no.
We didn't put you to sleep, I hope.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
Motion to adjourn, then?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
15 minutes earlier than last week, or last month, that's,
5 minutes early.
It's a record.
I just wanted to prove to Julie, she said this was gonna be the longest.
oh, is that what she said?
Yes, yes. I
So
told
you worked on moving things along.
Shut it off.